Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Talk of the Town podcast. If you have not already, make sure to hit that subscribe button, as we're now on the road to 500 subscribers here on the YouTube channel. If you love sports content, sports talk, anything from the NFL to the NBA, it's all right here on the Talk of the Town podcast. And man, have we had a crazy 24 hours around the league or what? The NFL and the NBA both. We got Bam Adebayo score 83 points, the second most points in a game of all time yesterday against the Wizards, passing Kobe Bryant. Yeah, I know he had 43 free throws or something like that, which is just absolutely criminal. But man, congrats to him. I mean, I'll put it on my TV out here. I was like, I wish I had $100 on this because I'd be house shopping today. I can't imagine how much money I would have made putting a $100 bet on that, dude. If I could go back in time, I would go back 20 hours ago to do that, bro. So just crazy. No one had that on their bingo card. And then the Maxx Crosby trade getting taken back, and he's a Raider again. And then they go and sign Trey Hendrickson this morning, the Ravens did. So, and I think there's a lot going on behind that. I really don't think he failed his physical. I think the Ravens showed it for him. They knew he was coming off of surgery and everything. So I'm going to dive all into that here in a few. There's a lot to talk about today. We're going to grade trades. We're going to grade signings. The major ones, at least. There's some minor ones like I think like Chigakonkwo signed with the Commanders about 25 minutes ago prior to me recording this. So if you want anything like that, if you're curious, you want me to grade it, just leave in the comments. I'll leave a comment for you guys, so just let me know. But yeah, man, we're going to go over the major trades, the major signings here. We're going to grade them, so stay tuned. And let's get into it here. Starting off with the Maxx Crosby trade, I'm giving it an F-. I mean, I don't think it deserves an F. I don't think it deserves an F+, a D-. I think this is the worst it can get right here. And I think in terms of, I think it's going to have a big ripple effect on the Ravens. I've been comparing it to the Dallas Mavericks trade with Luka Doncic last year. I know it may be a little different. You guys are probably saying, well, hey, Luka Doncic just got traded out of nowhere in the middle of the night. I get that. Maxx Crosby, it was expected he was going to be traded from the Raiders. Maybe not necessarily to the Ravens, but he was just going to get traded in general. But nobody expected Maxx Crosby to get traded back to the Raiders like a couple of days after he got traded. And then the whole thing is just crazy. So I think the unexpectedness part, it may be different in a way, but it's still there in terms of comparing those trades. And then I think now the Mavericks had a massive ripple effect on their organization. I think the Ravens are going to have the same thing when it comes to players wanting to go there in free agency. I think it's just put a bit of a stain on the organization in general. And I think when you lose trust in an organization, like the Mavericks fans have, Nico Harrison ended up getting fired like a year after the trade. People were chanting him, sending him death threats, sitting outside of his house. I don't think people are going to be doing that to Eric DeCosta necessarily, but it's just not good. It's not good vibes at all. And it reminds me of it because they still ended up trading for Anthony Davis, who was going to be a Hall of Famer one day, undoubtedly. I think Maxx Crosby will be in that same conversation. I think one day he'll be a Hall of Famer. But I think Trey Hendrickson he's not as good as Maxx Crosby. He's still a good player dealing with injuries now in his older age. They end up picking him up, kind of like Anthony Davis. The Mavericks ended up getting AD, but it's not Luka Doncic. Trey Hendrickson is not Maxx Crosby. So, and honestly, the fans don't even care. The fans didn't want Anthony Davis, and the fans don't really want Trey Hendrickson because you had Luka Doncic and you had Maxx Crosby, and then it ends up getting thrown out of the window. So I very much compare it to that. I think the Ravens organization, like I mentioned, that ripple effect is going to be there unless they end up, Trey Hendrickson goes out and gets 14 plus 15, 16, 17 sacks. They end up winning the Super Bowl. Maxx Crosby plays 5-6 games, injured all year as a season-ending injury, and finishes the season with like 2 sacks, and the Raiders still suck, or wherever he goes to. I think that's the only way that this is going to work out for the Ravens. If they go out, and this year Trey Hendrickson is injured, he finishes with like 4 sacks, misses a boatload of games, misses 12 games or something like that, and they end up getting bounced out in the first round or don't even make the playoffs like they did this year, the Ravens are in serious trouble going forward. Because that Mavericks organization is going to be they're going to be recovering from the whole Luka Doncic trade for a while. Again, Maxx Crosby didn't take the Ravens to a Super Bowl or anything like that. Like Luka took them to the finals and had some success with them, but I think it's very comparable still. That hype is just not there. People didn't care about Anthony Davis being there anymore, even though he was still a great player there. And Trey Hendrickson, again, I live 20, 25 minutes away from the M&T Bank Stadium, family full of Ravens fans. Friends are all Ravens fans except for myself. And a lot of people just aren't fans of it. Like they really do not care about signing Trey Hendrickson because they're pissed off. They want an explanation. And like I mentioned before, this will not work out unless it's going to go one of two ways. Trey Hendrickson's going to have a great season, play a majority of the season, if not the whole season. They go on to at least a Super Bowl or something like that. Maxx Crosby doesn't play any games. I think even if Maxx Crosby plays a shit ton of games and he finishes for defense, he's going to be at the Defensive Player of the Year voting, especially if he plays a full season. It's just the kind of player he is. He's younger than Hendrickson. I don't know. To me, it just still doesn't feel like a good trade. I think the whole thing with the ripple effect I think it's going to have with free agents going there, not trusting the Ravens organization now, I think it's shady. Look, Trey Hendrickson said yesterday that today now, but yesterday he said that tomorrow I'm going to have a decision on a team of where I want to go after the Maxx Crosby physical thing went down. Or I think it may have actually even been like 10 minutes before that. So I think they may have even informed them that this whole thing was going on. Then all of a sudden, Maxx Crosby fails his physical, which here's the thing that doesn't make any sense with that, is they knew he had a surgery back in January on it. The season doesn't even start till September anyway. They said he's going to be perfectly, from multiple doctors and surgeons. Maxx Crosby even posted it on his story himself that he's going to be perfectly fine to play. He'll be in great shape to play in September. He'll be in perfectly fine shape to play by preseason. Okay, he may not be 100% right now, but they knew that going into the trade. You're telling me that the Raiders and the Ravens weren't conversing over the phone this whole time, and they knew nothing about this Maxx Crosby injury? Hell, I knew about it. And most people knew about it, that he's been playing injured all year. You remember the thing going on where they benched him because they wanted to tank for Fernando Mendoza because they said it was his knee or whatever it was, and he was pissed. He wanted to play. He knew at some point he would have had to get surgery anyway, but he was perfectly fine to play. So they knew this going into it. It doesn't make sense to me. I think the Ravens failed that physical personally. I don't think they just went out there like, oh my God, he had surgery. We didn't know he had surgery 2 months ago. Now all of a sudden this guy looks like this, like bullshit. All right. They knew this. They knew that if Trey Hendrickson was supposedly really close to signing with the Colts if it wasn't going to be the Ravens. I think they looked at this whole thing. They wanted their 2 first-round picks back. They go and sign Trey Hendrickson. To me, it's shady. And I think free agents going in to future off seasons now are not going to want to go there. And I've seen they signed Jaelan Hawkins today, the Patriots safety, who, look, I'm a Patriots fan. I think he's a great player. I think that's an amazing pickup for Baltimore. He was huge for them in that secondary this year. He's a hard hitter. He gets a lot of sacks. He forces a lot of turnover. So that's a great pickup for the Ravens. It really is. But still, I think in terms of bigger players, again, when you have guys going on like 2-year deals, 1-year deals, they're just going to sign wherever they want to go. But when you have big-time players like Crosby, whether it's receivers, offensive linemen, D linemen, they're going to look at this and be like, I don't really know if I want to play here. Like, am I going to trust this team to be able to keep me now? Because this is shady-ass business. So I think it's going to have a ripple effect. Like I said, I compared it to the Mavericks. It's had a ripple effect on their organization. They're one of the worst teams in the NBA right now, even with Cooper Flagg. It's just still, I think it's going to take a while for them to recover from this, unless it's more Super Bowl or bust for this team than it was 48 hours ago. And I said saying, look, Lamar luckily restructured his contract this morning. It was the worst 48 hours in the organization's history a little while ago. It was. I mean, they're losing a ton of players, likely Ricard, Linderbaum. We knew Linderbaum was probably going to walk out of the building anyway. But then the excuse was for them losing those players was, hey, we have Maxx Crosby now. So at least we've made up for it with that. And we'll probably go in and, maybe we'll sign some other guys, maybe lesser known guys, but we'll fill in those holes in the draft or whatever. Then you lose Maxx Crosby and now you get Trey Hendrickson. So in terms of the Trey Hendrickson grading now, I'd give it a C-. I like Trey Hendrickson a lot. He has been very injury prone over the last couple of years, which again, to me, doesn't make any sense because they end up failing Maxx Crosby's physical, but then you're going to go give Trey Hendrickson a shit ton of money. I get the Ravens had no choice but to replace that position. If they did that and didn't replace Maxx Crosby and just went into the season replacing the edge rusher with with a third or fourth round pick or hoping Mike Green would step up, it would have been worse than it is right now. But still, I just think it's not Trey Hendrickson's fault that all this went down. Look, it falls on the front office. He went, they offered him a ton of money. He has a chance to win a Super Bowl there. I get it. It's not his fault. But I think in terms of the stain it's going to have on the organization, which again is not Hendrickson's fault, but I don't, it just, none of it is pointing in the right direction for me. I'm not looking at this trade in. I'm like, well, he's been healthy over the last few years. He's only 26. Like, he's in his early 30s. They signed him for 4 years. And it's like you see TJ Watt now, kind of around the same age Hendrickson is, dealing with some injuries. He didn't come back the same player. Hendrickson was injured last year, wanted a ton of money, didn't really get it, but he didn't look like the same player last year when he was in. They offer him a ton of money. I get they have to do what they got to do to try to replace the Maxx Crosby thing. They knew what they wanted to do before that. But, yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm really not. I think this is going to have some serious effects on the organization. Again, it's not Hendrickson's fault. Maybe we look back on this year from now and they have a Super Bowl win and I look like a real asshole. But I don't know. I'm not loving it right now. I'm not. And I've seen some people, well, they're still getting a premier edge rusher. They got the second best one they could get behind Crosby. But again, old player getting older, kind of closer to his twilight years than he is his prime years. Been injury prone. If he can stay healthy, I think that boosts us up to a B-. But you have to trust him staying healthy. And now he has some shoes to fill. Like, this isn't, I think if they didn't do the Maxx Crosby trade and they just signed him for this, of course I'd boost this up to like a B or a B, like a BB plus, because they needed an edge rusher anyway. But I think now this puts a lot more pressure on him as it is. And then, I think he kind of has no choice but to go out there and play a full season and at least have 14 plus sacks, at least. He's going to at least have to have that season he did a few years ago, like 17 sacks. He's going to have a career year, a big season, or else, he's just going to be just hammered there in Baltimore. He has some big shoes to fill, and I think emotionally on him, it may take a toll. I think it's going to be hard on him. We'll see going forward, but I'm rating that a C- for now. I'm just not the biggest fan. Going in now to the 49ers, they signed Mike Evans. I agree this one a B. I think it is a good signing. He's an older player dealing with some injury concerns over the last few years. They signed him for like 3 years on a pretty decent deal. I like it. Now, you're probably wondering, well, why is it only a B then? They got him for a decent deal, 3 years. One, I think the 49ers need less injury-prone players. He hasn't necessarily been an injury-prone player for most of his career. As we know, and he had that big 1,000-yard streak until this year. But over the last few years, he's been dealing with injuries just because he's getting older. And he's a jump up and get it kind of guy, which I think they needed anyway. You have Pierce, who's kind of a smaller receiver. Jawan Jennings is really good. I like him. But again, you get a guy who's a veteran, playoff experience, Super Bowl experience, is a Super Bowl champion. There's a lot of rumors going around that them signing Todd Bowles was the deciding factor of Mike Evans leaving the Buccaneers, which I said that last week. I was like, honestly, I think them signing Todd Bowles is a disaster. And I think a lot of the players didn't even want him back. And I think that was a big reason why Mike Evans left Tampa Bay in the first place. But yeah, Mike Evans, again, if he can stay healthy, I think it'll be good. I don't think he'll be the same receiver as he's been over the last few years. It feels like he's now heading into that position to where maybe like DeAndre Hopkins was in his last few years in Tennessee. Like, he was really good in Tennessee his first year, even with bad quarterback play, switching between Levis and Tannehill. Of course, he'll have a good quarterback in Brock Purdy. He'll have guys around him that'll really help him out as well. But I just feel like he's older. He's getting more injury prone, which is not what the 49ers need. If I were them, I'd be looking at a guy, especially over the last few years, with a good track record of staying healthy. The last thing they need is kind of an injury-prone player over the last few years, but that's the only reason why I bumped this down a little bit. I think at max, obviously, if Mike Evans was at his prime like a few years ago, I'd give this, especially, he wouldn't get like 3 years, however much money. I mean, it would have been 4 years, a massive contract, but I think they actually got him for a pretty decent amount of money. They have him held down for a few years. Reminds me of the Stephon Diggs, actually. I'd say more or less Stephon Diggs to the Patriots, which he was good this year as a 1,000-yard receiver. Ended up cutting him after this year just because Mike Evans, God forbid he has any legal troubles, but Stephon Diggs has been in some legal shit and all that, so I get it's a little different. But I could see this maybe after this year if he has 600 yards or something and maybe like a cut candidate next year. But I think he'll be decent this year. I think it's a good signing for them. Again, it's a B. I think a B is a really good signing. I think, to me, an average signing is like a C+. So this is just a notch above that of it being good. I think there is some risks with it. Again, this team, I don't know what it is. They said there was some like facility next to the practice or the stadium that is causing players more injuries. If that's the case, then Mike Evans, you might be in trouble, bud, because you've had some problems over the last few years with staying healthy. But yeah, I like it. I think it'll be good for Purdy. I think the offense, especially with Kittle out going into the start of next year, it'll be nice to be able to have him there. So yeah, I do. I like it a lot, especially for what they got him for. The Rams trading for Trent McDuffie, A+. I think this is one of my favorite. I think this is so far my favorite trade or signing or anything so far. The Rams were a quarterback away from being in the Super Bowl and beating Seattle, I believe. And honestly, even having a better regular season record than they did. This team struggled at corner. They had Emmanuel Forbes as the number one corner, which he looked good to start off the season. And midway through the season, he kind of fell off a cliff. He's the number two corner at the end of the day. Emmanuel Forbes has shown great improvement so far throughout his NFL career. To start it off, he was known for being drafted behind Christian Gonzalez, who is like a million times better than him, let's be honest. But yeah, I think they needed a number one corner. They got it. They locked them up on like a 4-year extension. I think they ended up trading like a first-round pick and a second and something else. But I think for what they need, they're in win-now mode. You have a quarterback who's closer to being 40 years old than he is 35 years old, coming off of an MVP year. You don't know how many more years he has left. One thing we forget about Stafford played all the games this year, but he is one big hit away from having a nagging injury. Like when Stafford gets hurt, he has a nagging injury the whole year. So I agree with it. I like them going all in now because why build 4 years from now? I do believe the Rams, maybe going forward, I think they will this year. I look at the Rams going forward in terms of drafting Drew Aller. I think that would be one I'd look out for, like something right there for him sitting behind Matt Stafford for like a year or two. He was going to be the number one overall pick last year. Of course, we know Penn State fell off a cliff. He got injured this year. He still may be a first-day pick, but if they get lucky, they may end up trading up if they can, or getting him in day 2 or whatever, maybe potentially getting Drew Aller. I think that would be an absolutely great scenario. But for the Rams, McDuffie going there, they really don't have any holes. Their O-line is really good. Of course, quarterback, the MVP of the league this year. They have good running backs between Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. They have a good duo there. Good linebackers, good young, fast defensive linemen. And they upgraded corner. Their only problem this year was their secondary. They just got torched. And a lot of their games, you look, they're in shootouts. Well, now with McDuffie as their number one corner, especially has a good track record of staying healthy, Super Bowl experience. You're not worried about a guy like, is he going to get into the playoffs and fall off a cliff? McDuffie's been in the hardest situations you can be in the Super Bowl, playoffs, whatever it is. Down year this year with the Chiefs, he's seen it all. So I think this is just an absolute massive W. I think it's good for the Chiefs as well. All around, the trade's just an A+. You end up locking them up. Rams get their need in terms of their biggest hole in their roster, having a number one corner. You can move Emmanuel Forbes to your number two corner, which I think is fantastic. I think that's where he belongs. I think he's one of the better number two corners in the league. So I think the Rams have a real secondary now. And going into next year, man, I like them, especially now with Seattle losing a shit ton of players in free agency. To me, they're the strongest team in the NFC West. So that's the team to look out for to me now, especially with that secondary being buffed like that. So I love it a lot. Next, I have the Chiefs signing Kenneth Walker. I give that an A. Some people have been really harsh on this trade, saying they paid him a lot of money. He wasn't great during the regular season. Heated up in the playoffs. Well, one thing with that is you have Patrick Mahomes. I think this is still going to be kind of a weird year for the Chiefs. You have Travis Kelce coming back. It's this year still feels like a rebuilding year for Kansas City, but we'll still see. We have the draft coming up. We have still a lot of times for trades to be made and stuff like that. So we'll see. But to me, with the Chiefs, is they don't need to have a great regular season. And that's what people keep saying is, well, they need to be good in the regular season. If they get, and Kenneth Walker wasn't great in the regular season, he only heated up in the playoffs. Well, Patrick Mahomes is one of the best playoff quarterbacks in league history. Travis Kelce is one of the greatest playoff performers, playoff tight ends, whatever, in league history. The playoffs is what matters. They can go 9-8 and have a subpar regular season and have the Chargers or Denver finish first in their division. But what matters is if you can get in the playoffs. The Panthers almost upset the Rams in the playoffs this year. And to me, having a great playoff performer and a play extender, which is what the Chiefs needed the most. The Chiefs have too much of like Juju Smith. Isaiah Pacheco at that position was not a play extender. It was like the second he's seen a defender in his way, he got rocked. It's like he was a great kind of yard churner. He could get a yard or two. But in terms of a guy who can get 8 or 9 or 10 plus yards and really extend a play and be explosive, it's what the Chiefs didn't have is an explosive guy anywhere on their offense besides Pat Mahomes. That's what they needed more than anything, and a great playoff performer. Because if you can add Kenneth Walker to that mix of other all-time great playoff performers in Mahomes and Kelce, even though Kelce's past was prime, I think he could still find something like he did in the Super Bowl run a few years ago against the Eagles when everyone said he was washed in the regular season, which he looked at. But he found some juice in the playoffs. All you have to do in the playoffs is find some juice for three or four games, and you're set. And I think Kelce would do that if they were to get back to the playoffs this year. So it's huge. I give it an A. I think it's what they need. I think they'll go out and they'll probably get another receiver or something like that. Again, still no one really knows where the Chiefs are kind of headed into to start off the season. They want to see Kyler Murray go to Kansas City or somebody filling that spot, Russell Wilson, because Mahomes may not be back to start off the season. I'm going to be honest with you. I can't see Mahomes starting week 1. Even if he feels like he can go out there, he's going to go out there and play. So I think this is a great signing. I give it an A. One thing, too, I think it does for the Chiefs as well, with their first-round pick, their first-round pick's going to be huge this year. I think if they use it on a receiver or whatever, which I think at this point they will. They may end up using another pass rusher because it may be what they need. They lost Leo Chenal. Chris Jones is just kind of getting old now. It saves them from having to draft Jeremiah Love. Which Jeremiah Love is, I mean, if you look, if he should be what he's going to be, he'll be better than Kenneth Walker, but you don't have to waste your high first-round pick on Jeremiah Love. And I don't mean waste as like he's going to be a waste of a player, but you can use it on other needs now because you have a guy who just won Super Bowl MVP, and it's a guy who could really boost your offense. Now you can use it on an offensive lineman. It kind of frees up on whatever you want to use it on, whether you want to use it on another corner, whether you want to use it on an edge rusher, like whatever. Now, you're not so bolstered into needing a running back because now you got it. So I think it frees up a lot of things just outside of having to draft Jeremiah Love and you can really do a lot of things now with this kind of Kenneth Walker signing. So I give it an A. I think it's great. And I think, again, in terms of the criticism a lot of people have had saying, well, he's only a playoff performer. That's what Kansas City needs is a great playoff performer besides Pat Mahomes and Travis Kelce and Chris Jones. But I think Chris Jones is just kind of past that now. So, yeah. Next, I have Malik Willis. Sorry, I can't even read my own handwriting half the damn time. Dolphins signed Malik Willis. Was it 3 years, $67.5 million? I think like 45 of that's guaranteed. Pairs up with Jeff Hafley again. I give it a C+. I think it's decent. I think there is a lot of upside to Malik Willis, but I'm not going to give this I've seen some people saying, hey, dude, they need to give this an A+, and Malik Willis is still very unknown. Like, mind you, when he started this year, he looked good in moments, and I think he looked really good filling in for Jordan Love. But ultimately, the team was better with Jordan Love. And even though Jordan Love at the end of the season was dealing with injury, at the end of the day, they are better off with Jordan Love. I've seen some people say, oh, they need to fill in Malik Willis. Malik Willis dueled off with Tyler Huntley later in the season. They got smoked by like 24 points. I know Derrick Henry was running all over them, all over the field, but Tyler Huntley still he played a decent game. I thought he actually played a pretty good game. But I think, you're now taking the biggest hit in any history in terms of any quarterback being cut. I mean, they're losing like $90 million this year on Tua Tagovailoa just in terms of taking a cap hit. It's like $20 million over what Denver lost on Russell Wilson in terms of the biggest cap hit per year. It is ridiculous. And now you kind of go in and it's like, you have a quarterback who does have a lot of upside. I hope Malik Willis goes out and balls out. But I have to just kind of cut it right down the middle in terms of a C because it's very unknown. Malik Willis did look great moments stepping in for Jordan Love, but at the same time, he didn't really win that many games for him when he stepped in. So, and that was with a team that was obviously a playoff team. And I think Miami's kind of far from a playoff team. I think obviously they're just stripping it down. They want to rebuild. They have a new head coach. So this could head in all sorts of different directions. So at least he's familiar with Jeff Hafley, but if this ends up being a disaster, now they're kind of cash-strapped to another QB who's not nearly to the extent of Tua, but I get it. Look, the Dolphins, you got to go in. You have to be competitive somehow. You want to give Malik Willis a chance. Absolutely respect it. I think Malik Willis deserves a chance. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I just still give it a C in terms of the unknown. So, and I think one thing, too, that's incredibly, I think Malik Willis I don't want to use the word overrated because, again, I do think he has the potential to be really good in this league. But they had him graded over Kyler Murray. I think we forget when Kyler Murray is really healthy and he's playing at his best with a pretty decent team around him, not a really shitty Arizona team. He's a borderline top 10 quarterback in the NFL. So that's kind of what maybe the Dolphins were expecting him to be. And what a lot of people were expecting was hey, we like him over Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's a borderline top 10 quarterback at his best. He is a top 10 quarterback at his best. A lot of people have him ranked 10, maybe 11, 12. He's right in that range of being he was an MVP candidate at certain points of his career. More than just 1 year, 2-3 years of his career, he's been an MVP candidate. So, I think some people kind of have overrated Malik Willis. I think there's still a lot of unknown there. But, I give it a C. I think there's just a lot of unknowns. So we'll see going into the future. I don't think the team's great. It'll be great around him. So I think it's going to be a rough year for Miami still, but hopefully he'll show signs of life there for the organization because they need it. Next, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers signing Michael Pittman. I think him paired with DK Metcalf is going to be a really good duo. I think it's going to be a nightmare for teams having to go up and guard the jump ball. I think if anything, Aaron Rodgers is going to want to come back just to throw those guys 50-yard bombs down the field. Like I mentioned, it's been a nightmare having to guard those two down the field. Big, physical, strong, tall receivers that can just go up and get it. I think that team is going to lack speed on the offensive side of the ball, but pairing up with Rico Dowdle, Mike McCarthy now calling the plays on offense, not awful, unbearable to watch Arthur Smith calling the plays. I think it'll be pretty interesting. I give it a B. Again, I think it's better than average. I think it's one of the more underrated trades signings, whatever so far. I think it hasn't really been talked about enough. Michael Pittman's had a down year last year, over the last couple of years, but his quarterback situation's been a mess. He's played with Anthony Richardson, Daniel Jones, Alec Pierce kind of took over for him. But, I think pair up now with whoever Pittsburgh's quarterback's going to be. I think it's going to be Aaron Rodgers coming back or Kyler Murray. It's going to be one of the two. It's not going to be some, Ty Simpson or whatever. I think they're going to get one of those two guys. I'll try to roll with that. But, I give that one a B. I really like it. So going to kind of fast fire through these now. Jaelan Phillips now with the Panthers, 4-year, $120 million. I'm going to give it a B-. I was kind of debating on giving it a C+, but I think they're paying a lot of money. Again, their defense really needs help, especially in their linebacker position and stuff like that. They needed a lot of help. Completely respect the Panthers for going and paying for him. He is one of the best defenders in the league when healthy. The problem is he can't stay healthy. His whole career has just been nagged by injuries. So if he can stay healthy, this will be fantastic. I would, if I knew Jaelan Phillips could stay healthy, I'd give this an A. If he can stay healthy on the field, this is an A signing right here for the Panthers. But I have to drop it to a B- because injuries have just nagged this guy his entire career. And he's been one of the best players in the league, but then you notice he'll be out for 6 weeks. So I respect it. Love the Panthers going in and signing this guy. They needed help on defense, especially at the line. They've been trying to fill in the linebacker position since Luke Kuechly retired. So I love it. But hopefully he can stay healthy. Again, you're paying a lot of money to a guy. You're kind of like flipping the coin with, is he going to be able to stay on the field? Is he not going to be able to? They'll find out, but I love it. I'm going to give that a B- there. Linderbaum to the Raiders, I give it a. Again, you have to overpay for linemen now. Especially, it's not even a tackle. They're paying him, what, $27 million a year? But still, you have to. And I respect it for them going in. Their offensive line, if you've seen Geno Smith play a single snap this year, it was absolutely atrocious. The O-line was just not even bearable to watch. It was just a shit show. But, you have to go in, overpay guys. And I think he deserved to be a strength number 2 guy in free agency this year. So, and you're drafting Fernando Mendoza. You don't want Mendoza getting beat to death in his rookie year. You've seen Drake May, seen Caleb Williams his rookie year. Those guys with really bad O-lines just don't stand a chance. So I like them going out, bolstering, trying to get a foundation of their O-line there. Linderbaum. A lot of teams would pray to have a guy like this on their team, right? So, yeah, I love it. I think it's going to be great for Mendoza, great for the team. I love what the Raiders are doing this offseason, though. They're going out and signing a lot of really good players. Kind of reminds me of the Patriots offseason. They may even end up trading it later into the first round. I've seen to go get more offensive line help. So, we'll see going forward for him here, but yeah, I really like it there. So give that an A. 2 out of the Falcons. Again, I'm going to free fire through these next 3 here. 2 out of the Falcons. I think it's like 1 year, like a couple $1 million. Give that an A-. Tua, look, his brain may be fried in terms of him getting all these concussions. I feel for him. But I think in terms of having a good backup, maybe you start him. I don't know what Michael Penix is looking like. There's a lot of questions with Penix now going forward. Like, they don't even know if this is going to be their franchise QB. I think this time next year, the Falcons are going to be drafting a quarterback. They're going to be looking at something in terms of their quarterback position. I don't think Tua is the answer going forward, but I think this year he's paired up with a lot of really good weapons there. That team is way better than Miami, right? So I like it. They got him for really cheap. I think it gives them an option. Someone they can win with potentially. I think Stefanski, I think he kind of fits in that realm there. So, there's only 3 lefty quarterbacks in the NFL. Falcons have 2 of them. I find that interesting. So I like it, actually. I think it fits well. Maybe you can give Michael Penix some sort of guidance. You got to remember, Tua was like the leading passer in the NFL for a few years. He looked really, really good. So if he can give some advice to Penix, kind of get the quarterback situation in some sort of positive direction there in Atlanta, I think he could potentially do that. So I'm going to give that an A-. I like the value. I like Tua. I like the veteran presence. I like it all. So, yeah, A- there. Odafe Oweh to the Commanders. I give a D-. Commanders fans may rip me apart, but I hate this signing. $100 million for a guy who you look for the Ravens when he had that double-digit sack season, and he was good with the Commanders to end off the season, or not the Commanders, the Chargers to end off the season. He was decent. When they traded him from the Ravens to the Chargers, he looked pretty good, not going to lie, but you're paying him $100 million. And then people will go back and say, well, that double-digit sack season he had with the Ravens a few years ago. I want to fill you guys in on some information you may not have known. Every single one of his sacks in that double-digit sack season were in garbage time. That means 2 minutes of the game when they're up 10-plus points in a double-digit possession or whatever lead they have. Complete garbage time. All of his sacks in that double-digit sack season were from that. So I think 4 years, $100 million. I get the Commanders are desperate for defensive help. Their defense was horrendous. But $100 million to Odafe Oweh, I think this is going to go down as one of the worst signings of this free agent class. I think we're going to look at this 2 years from now, and it's going to be a complete disaster. I think Odafe Oweh is one of the most overrated players in the NFL. I think he has been even when he was on the Ravens. I think he did play decent on the Chargers. I'll give him that. But I think it's going to go back, and they're going to wish they could get out of this. I think they're going to be going to bed at night just really wishing they could get out of this contract. So I give it a D-. Again, I may look like a real dickhead going forward a couple years from now, but we'll see. And then the Patriots with Romeo Doubs, I give that a B+. I really like it. Supposedly, they're still in talks for getting A.J. Brown. That dream is not dead for the Patriots, but He's one of the best separators in the league, has been the last couple of years. He's up there with the best receivers in the NFL in terms of getting separation from receivers, which is what the Patriots have needed for 7 years now. Like, they've needed a separator for a long time. They got in Romeo Doubs. I think if they can go out and get A.J. Brown to pair up with Doubs, this is going to be one of the best receiving cores in the NFL. That duo there with Brown and Doubs, dude, May throwing the deep ball down the field, this is going to go from a B+, and also to the value they got Romeo Doubs, 4 years, $70 million for, I think, one of the better wide receivers in the league. Like, yeah, one of the better wide receivers. The Packers fans will love him, but problem is in Green Bay, they're splitting the ball between a lot of guys there, right? And Jordan Love can't necessarily stay healthy and this and that. So I think Doubs there, we're going to see a breakout year from Romeo Doubs this year with Drake May throwing him the ball down the field. One of the best deep ball throwers, if not the best deep ball thrower in the NFL right now. I think if they do go out and get A.J. Brown, this is going to be an A pickup for them. It's going from a B+ to an A. Actually, an A+. I think you pair him up next to A.J. Brown for the value, 4 years, $70 million. Next to A.J., one of the best receiving duos in the NFL, period. That goes to an A+, actually. And then, goes to an A+ if that happens. But lastly, the Alec Pierce signing. He is now the highest paid receiver in like free agent history. Like, in terms of being a free agent, he just got paid an ass load of money. I give it a C+. I think it's a lot of money for Alec Pierce. I like him a lot as a receiver. I get you have to pay him a lot of money. Any team would have had to pay him a lot of money. Apparently some teams, like the Patriots, for example, were going to pay him a lot more money than what the Colts offered him, but he wanted to go back to Indy. So no matter who paid him that much money, the Patriots would have paid him that much money. I would have given it like a C or a C-. I love him as a deep threat, but I'm just not the biggest fan of that, to be honest with you. I think it's a lot of money for Alec Pierce, especially for a team that just traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. They just paid Daniel Jones like $100 million a few minutes ago, or a few hours ago. Just not the biggest fan of it, to be honest with you. I like it, but I think it's a lot of money for him. I do. So we'll see going forward. But yeah, man, that's it. Those are the trades I've decided to grade again. Let me know what you guys think, whether or not you agree, whether you boost some of these trades, make some even less. If you think Odafe Oweh is a B or even an F side, you let me know down low, or any of the others I graded. If you guys have any other kind of minor, trades, signings at all that I didn't talk about today, whether or not I want to hear your guys' opinion on those grades. If you want to hear my take on those, on any of those players, hear my grade on them, you let me know. I'll do that for you. So, yeah, that's it today. Hope you all enjoyed the video. And per usual, y'all, take it easy.